Well, speaking of warriors who are out of their context,
Oh, yes.
time to move on to a movie recommended to us by a friend of the show, Edwin Acevedo, last week.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. This is one of his favorite movies. Yeah, The 13th Warrior, which um, is based on the Michael Crichton novel, Eaters of the Dead,
Uh,
which.
Hey, Daniel, not to interrupt you, but
Mhm.
my phone just notified me. Apparently, Critique Corner is streaming right now.
Uh,
This might be the most okay. I haven't ever gotten the notification on my phone when the stream was already over, but this is pushing it, considering
yeah.
this is our last thing.
Yeah. Come on. Give us a break, YouTube, please. Man.
Oh well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But
Please continue.
yeah, yeah. So it's based on the yeah, so 13th Warrior is based on Michael Crichton novel, Eaters of the Dead, which I think this movie was originally going to be called Eaters of the Dead, but they're like, we don't like that title. Um, and It's basically Michael Crichton's version of Beowulf. Um, it starts off with Antonio Banderas' character, Abin, who was he Persian or Arab? I can't remember.
I believe he was Arab.
Arab, yeah.
So this is basically set at so to give some context. This is set at a time period where you have the Caliphate, which was set up in Baghdad. It was after the initial Muslim conquest, so I believe this was still the stage of things where you basically had an unbroken empire from Spain to touching India.
Yeah.
Um, and This is based on a historical figure where we actually have some of his writings left over. Let me just get his name here. Uh, and it
Uh,
started off as like a literary challenge between Crichton and a friend of his. A friend of his was just saying that, Beowulf is a bad story. It's boring. There's nothing good in it. The only reason we remember it is because it's like the oldest surviving story in English
mhm.
or something similar to English.
Yeah.
And he decided that, he took the challenge to make an interesting story out of it. I'm about halfway through the novel right now, and the movie did change some things, but so far it seems like a reasonably faithful adaptation.
Yeah.
The novel itself is a bit dry because he's basically taken the guy's named Ahmad ibn Fadlan, who
Okay.
wrote a story about or the story of his travels. He was basically in the movie they have it that he messed with the wrong guy's wife. Uh, and it was similar in the novel, just with more steps.
Ah.
Um, and he gets sent away to the north to. In the movie, they actually have it where the Vikings are his goal. In this one, he's going north to try to bring Islam to what would today be part of Russia or Ukraine. And then he happens to cross some. At the time on the Volga River, there were a lot of Vikings who were going down at the Volga Northmen.
Okay.
And so the actual story that he wrote, the actual what we have left of his report, uh, is one of the only stories we have from the period about people interacting with the Northmen that wasn't people being R-worded and pillaged by them.
Oh.
So he has like a fairly unbiased take on them,
Okay.
which makes him an interesting historical resource.
Yeah.
But so basically, the novel is a bit dry because it is imitating the style of the original story.
Mm.
Um, and then, like at a certain point, it suddenly diverges into becoming a Beowulf, where he runs into in the novel he's named Bullywif.
Yeah. Yeah. And So in the movie, when he runs into the Vikings, and he's kind of basically trying to understand them and their ways and everything, and then a young boy shows up and tells him that their village is being attacked by you know marauders or whoever,
Right.
and
A
yeah.
mysterious force they won't tell they won't tell the foreigner among them who they are really.
Right. And so uh their they have this woman who's like the soothsayer, and she says, oh, they need 13 warriors to help them out. And so a bunch of, they all stand up and volunteer. And then she says, oh no, the 13th one has to be a foreigner.
Right. And so he gets recruited because in the movie version, it's just him and an old man who's with him. So
Yeah.
he's the only one who could possibly do this adventure. Um,
Right. Yeah.
One of the things that I bits of context you get by reading the book is that like you get footnotes, which you can't really do a footnote in a movie.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and the footnote is that the Vikings thought the number 13 was interesting because they did a lunar calendar. So by their measurement, a year was 13 moons.
Mm. Hmm.
But they thought the number 13 was interesting because they knew it didn't really math out, so they had to make adjustments. So the 13th of something was like always out of place, which is
Uh,
why, like for ritual purposes, that's why he got forced to go on this adventure.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that kind of tracks with Crichton, Michael Crichton's writing. Like he did a lot of research in his books, when he would, the
Hmm.
on all the topics that he would do. Like, and so yeah, like if you ever read like any of his books, yeah, they're just footnotes everywhere. Um, but yeah, that's yeah. I was curious about that, because didn't somebody say, oh, the 13th month or something like that? I'm like, what?
They might have. I don't remember
Yeah,
that
yeah.
specifically.
But
Yes.
yeah, but
So you have
yeah,
the contrast between you have these 12, brutish Vikings. They have a scene where they just to show like how disgusted he is with them. Um, where the Vikings, they'll wash up, spit, blow their nose in a tub of water, and they just hand it over to the next guy, and the guy repeats the ritual.
yeah, yeah. They hand it to him, and he's like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah, this is from the book,
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
was not made up.
yeah,
Uh, so he ends up with them. He slowly learns their language, actually very rapidly learns their language, but
Mhm.
that's
That's
movie time.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah, move, yeah, move. Got to keep it moving. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and let's see here. So they end up there and they learn a few things. People have seen the great fireworm.
Hmm.
Uh, I, yeah, so I think I might have derailed things slightly with talking about the book a bit. So just to
That's
make
okay.
sure we're on the same page. I think you mentioned this, but again, we since I derailed things. So he's going up north. It's him and the 12 other warriors and their travels. He's kind of an effete, soft man, just because he was living in what was, except for possibly parts of China. I'm not familiar with the time period of East Asia. Like China would be the only real competition for like the biggest city in the world and the most
Yeah,
civilized city in the world.
yeah,
So he's definitely out of his element.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and so he's there with the new king Bullywhiff or Beowulf if you prefer,
yeah,
um, and they are helping to fight off this force called the Wendell, and they find out Grendel, and they
yeah,
find out that there's been sites that have not been seen for many years that are showing up again. I remember my grandfather telling me about the great fireworm that would come down from the mountains, and,
yeah,
the Wendell have uh, yeah, the Wendell have been seen again, and they come across farmlands that have been pillaged, and every corpse they find has had a few bites taken out.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they think they're like, these creatures, they're like monsters of some kind, and then
Or
but then
demons.
yeah, or yeah, demons, yes. And but then they kind of quickly realize that they're basically just men who are,
Well, where they figure it out is they do so in the original Beowulf story, Grendel shows up in the middle of the night attacking the mead hall, and
Right.
uh, I think Beowulf himself cuts off his arm. Well, the, they imitate that here uh, with Antonio Banderas' character doing the same trick, and that shows, oh, that wasn't claws. It's like somebody wearing a bear hide.
Yeah.
And so let's take a step back again, because this movie is interesting because I looked up some reviews of it. Robert Ebert did not care for this one
Mm.
because he basically said it didn't have a story, which or characters, which I like. What?
Yeah.
Do like it's a very action oriented story, but it definitely has a
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. That's well, and the other I think what probably hurt the movie too in that regard is that they did have to go through some reshoots. The movie was directed by John McTiernan, who's listed on the credits as the director, and most people know him from Predator and Die Hard. Um, but the reshoots were actually directed by Michael Crichton, and they had to rework some stuff because I think they changed the ending and a few other things, and and usually when you hear about a movie that goes through that and then the budget goes up, it's like bad. It kind of it sort of poisons the well for that movie when it gets released.
Looking at you, Captain America 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I almost want to say at this point, I liked this movie enough that I want people to watch it, and knowing kind of what the gimmick is could be a spoiler.
Yeah.
So at this point, here, past here, there be spoilers. If the idea of a historical action movie that mimics the story of the Beowulf sounds appealing to you,
Mhm.
and you like the idea of having Antonio Banderas playing an Arab, is, it is as amusing to you as it is to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it is a very action-heavy story. The
Hmm.
characters are kind of thin, but I think they all perform the roles they're supposed to.
Hmm.
Special shout out to let's see here, who played the other Viking that he was more involved with?
Oh,
Who was his translator initially?
I can't remember.
One sec, let's just go ahead and pull this up. Oh man, 13th Warrior on IMDb has a slightly lower aggregate rating than Beverly Hills Cop 4.
Ooh.
I definitely enjoyed one of those more than the others.
Yeah.
I think it was okay. I think it was Dennis Storhoy
Yes, I think. Yeah, I believe that was him.
as
Yeah.
Herger. He was great. He had a lot of charisma as this Viking guy who was the main point of contact for Ahmed
Yeah.
because that's a carryover from the book where at least as far as I wrote, he didn't actually learn much of the Viking language.
Okay.
I would say that having him there as the conduit for communication kind of means that Bullywhiff himself is kind of feels oddly absent from the movie.
Yeah, he does. He shows up, every now and then, and of course he's there for the big moments because he has to be because he's the Beowulf character
Right. He's
and
the he's the king of this war party.
yeah, yeah, and but yeah, he's kind of just yeah, like you said, he's just kind of there to like give orders really most of the
Yep.
time.
Although he does get a some really nice action sequences in the back half, he just isn't interacting with Ahmed all that much.
Yeah, no, you're right there. Yeah, they don't really talk to each other that much in the movie, which I found kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's a carryover from the novel. I would call that a situation where as soon as you have the scene where he basically learns Norse language, and starts being able to speak it.
Yeah.
You could have adjusted the script a little bit to give him some more interactions with this, heroic character.
Yeah.
I also wonder if part of what hurts this movie is you kind of have to know what the gimmick is going in.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't really know, especially the historical context of it, yeah, you might get a little lost with what's going on.
Right? Like, I mean, they aren't really teaching much of Caliphate history in American schools. And while I did read Beowulf in high school, a lot of people just kind of remember it as that thing I had to read that one time
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. Yeah.
without remembering any real details of it.
Yeah.
But I would say I give it a strongish recommend. Just with that caveat, it's going to be
Yeah.
it's a little bit strange, and maybe you have to be like a history obsessed guy like me to want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your overall thoughts before we delve into the spoilers, Daniel?
I thought it was a good movie. Yeah, it's there were some parts with the plot that I thought could have been fleshed out a little bit more. Like there was a little subplot in there with the some like kind of political stuff with the village.
Yeah, that kind of seemed to vanish, didn't it?
Yeah,
Wonder if that was part of what got cut.
probably. Yeah, because it seemed a little out of place. Um, so I kind of wish they had fleshed that out a little bit more.
Right? It's like you basically have a scheming son of the old king who he's killed his brothers and he's like scheming, and then it's like he stops at a certain point.
Because the one guy challenges the I think it was the Ahmed's friend is the he
Yeah,
challenges like the guy the
Herger
son's Herger, yeah, he challenges the son's the
champion. Yeah,
champion, yeah, to a duel and kills him, and then that's that.
yep,
Is Yeah, it just seemed a little
didn't pay off.
didn't pay off, yeah, but other than that, I thought it was a decent movie, yeah, um and I like the kind of the camaraderie that that Ahmed develops with the Vikings, because
Hmm.
at first they think he's just like, oh, he's just some
Some soft foreigner.
soft foreigner, but then
Yeah,
as the movie progresses and he starts fighting with them, he actually he gains their respect, and yeah.
yep. All right, so on to the spoiler section.
Yes.
So, this is actually an idea I had had independently back when I was in high school and was reading it. And so I was like, I could tell that nobody in that class had read this book at the time because they would tell me, "Oh, that's just from Eaters of the Dead." Uh, so the first hint that you have that what the Wendell actually are is they find an artifact that looks very much like a sort of a fertility figure that you find uh, in archaeological remains from Stone Age Europe.
Right. Yeah.
Like they find this little porcelain figure. Let me go ahead and pull up an example here, which is kind of now regarded as a representation of a pregnant woman.
Yeah, it's something like that, yeah.
And so they find this among the things that the Wendell have left behind. They figure out that the Wendell, when they cut off the arm, it's just a human-ish hand under there. The Wendell are some sort of primitive tribe, possibly relict Viking, or not Vikings, relict Neanderthals,
Yes. Yeah.
which is a really cool idea because what this basically turns the movie into it's Vikings versus cavemen.
Yeah.
The one detail that did strike me as slightly odd, so it turns out that the fire worm was actually the Wendell riding on their horses holding torches.
Hmm.
It seemed a little bit odd to me that the Wendell would have horse riding, uh, considering how primitive they were.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten far enough in the book to know if that's still part of it. That could have also just been a thing that they had to throw in to kind of explain in universe why the Wendell were so devastating.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but they did have the historically accurate element that cavemen didn't really have bow and arrow, at least not for at least the Neanderthals didn't. I
Yeah.
don't even think the Neanderthals had the atlatl spears they were shown, but basically they have these spear throwers where you have a long stick that you use to give yourself more leverage when you throw a dart,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they use those to good effect.
Yeah. Yeah. And they wore bear hides too.
Yep, they think they're bears.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that was the big aha moment in there when he's like, "Oh, they think they're bears and bears are in caves." And like, "Oh, well, let's find some caves." Yeah.
Yep, and so they they fight them off a couple of times. They and then the 13 warriors, at least the remainers of them, raid the cave network where the Wendell live,
Yeah.
and where they kind of recapitulate kind of recast the story of Beowulf is that Bullywhip goes in to fight the woman who is like called the mother of the Wendell,
Right. Yeah.
um, who he kills her, but she manages to poison him with a dagger dipped in snake poison that she had, which is
Yeah.
related to how Beowulf died in the original story, which he fought off a dragon but died of its venom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and then they manage to raid the cave, and then they get out, and they
Yep,
go back to the village, and where the remaining Wendell uh, try to attack, but they find them off.
yep, and King Bullywolf he goes out like a boss because he was succumbing to the poison, but he comes out and
Yeah.
manages to get a real fight going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Warriors like Vikings. Yeah, they're like, well, I'm not gonna. I don't want to die in some bed.
Right.
I want to, die fighting. Yeah,
Yep. I need to go to Valhalla,
yeah,
and so they save the day, and Ahmed goes home to write the story of King Bullywhip. The end.
yep,
Now I'll say that as I describe it, it doesn't sound as interesting as it actually was to experience it.
yeah.
It's because it was very well shot from an action perspective. Like as they're sneaking into the cave, you can feel the tension at every moment.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. When I like that part where they're in the cave and they have to the swing on these ropes in the waterfall, and Banderas is like, I don't do well with heights.
Yes. But so overall, I'd say I really enjoyed this. It kind of felt like it was made specifically for my nerdy slash historical interests, just because
Yeah,
it's a weird mashup, Vikings versus cavemen. And it's all done in a way that's somewhat historically plausible. Like
yeah,
if there were going to be remnant Neanderthals anywhere, Scandinavia actually makes sense for that.
yeah, yeah. Given the terrain and the climate, yeah,
The terrain, the climate, and Scandinavia is deceptively large if you look at it on the map.
yeah, it
There's
is.
there's a lot of spots to where you could have isolated tribes of Neanderthals still alive.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a bit like Alaska.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. Lots of mountains, lots of places to hide.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like overall, I very much enjoyed myself. I can see the criticisms of it. I definitely didn't really think about the criticisms as much as I was watching it. They kept my attention. Uh, I'm trying very hard to communicate how much I liked this movie, but I feel like I'm adding too many caveats.
yeah,
Yeah, recommend if you're just in the mood for a good action movie.
yeah. I think so too. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it's not streaming anywhere.
Yeah, we
So if
have
you
to
want
rent
to,
it.
yeah, you have to rent it. Although it's not that expensive to rent. It was what, like four
4 bucks.
bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll also say that part of the reason I feel like I had to add some caveats to it is I tried to explain the concept of it to my father and a friend, and they both weren't terribly interested. Like, oh,
yeah. Oh,
can't even fake it because I'm clearly excited, huh? Okay, cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That kind of tells me that why this movie was kind of a bomb because
Yeah, just
I'm kind of surprised it got greenlit in the first place, really.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's a Michael Crichton novel, and of course, that's the guy that wrote Jurassic Park.
Yeah, probably gave it a
So there,
lot of traction.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The studio wanted some of that Jurassic Park money, and
Yeah,
mm.
it was a Touchstone Pictures movie.
Oh, okay, so it was Disney.
Yep, which makes it even more surprising that it got made when you really think about it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I think in Touchstone kind of at least in when this came out, what, 98, 99,
yeah, somewhere
uh,
in there.
uh, 99. Touchstone had a lot more independence than it. This is before it got shut down.
Yeah,
Anyway, I believe that is all the news that's fit to print about this movie.
indeed. Yes.